Hi, and welcome to this Selenium recipe regarding element state. So we've seen a lot of use cases, how we can work with text fields, radio buttons, drop downs, frames, and so forth. But before I go on showing you something else, I want to have a short video regarding element states. So Selenium offers us some already built-in methods to check if the state of an element is as we would expect it. And what do I mean by the state of an element? So we have this enabled and disabled, which is very important because if we're doing a test and you want to make an input in a field that is already that is disabled, you will not be able to do that. And we have also a special state for radio buttons, checked and not checked. And we did see that in the radio buttons video. If you haven't watched that, there's a link in the description. Have a look at it. So what we're going to do in this video, we're going to identify these elements and we're going to check if they are enabled or not enabled. And in case they are enabled, we're going to make an input. Okay, so let's go to IntelliJ. I already have the test created and you will find the code in the Git repo as always. And let's write down what we want to do. So we want to identify the elements, the web elements, and then input text in the element that is enabled. Okay, so let's go to the site and we open our developer tools and let's try to identify the first element, and it seems to have an ID of disabled element. That's very good for us. And the other one seems to have an ID of input. Perfect. Okay, so let's create the two elements. Element number one, disabled element, driver find element by ID, and element number two, enabled element. You can call yours however you want, just calling them like this so that we know which one is disabled and which one is enabled by ID. And I think the ID was input. Okay, perfect. Good. Now we want to check their state, and before we add the code for the if, let's just console log. Sorry, put it in Java here. No console log. We put system out print. This is what happens when you do Java and JavaScript. So this was a short spoiler. You will see JavaScript on this channel. So let's add here some, let's say is disabled element enabled, and then we're going to add disable element dot is enabled. This will return true or false. So if it is enabled, it will return true. If it is disabled, it will return false. And since I'm a bit lazy, let me copy this a couple of times. Don't worry about the formatting. I'll reformat it in a few seconds. So here I'm putting is disabled. And here is enabled, and here is disabled. So if I wrote the code correctly, when we run the test, we should see, okay, sorry, disabled here and enabled here. we should get, is the disabled element enabled false? Is it disabled true? Then true and false. Okay, so let's run the test. And let's check the console. So is disabled element enabled false? Disabled true? True, perfect. Here I have an issue. Should be disabled. Yes, perfect. Okay, and now let's write the code. So as we said, we want if the element is enabled. So let's see, is enabled. Then what are we going to do? We're going to do disable element dot send keys, and let's just write something really smart. I am enabled. And let's also put for the other one. So if enabled element is enabled, is enabled, enable element send keys, and we're going to do the same. I am enabled. And let me just add also an else statement here, because well, if it's not enabled, just going to say element is not enabled. And the same thing here. And we can actually comment all of these lines if we want. Let's just leave them. They're good for debugging. And let me add at the end here another entry for debugging. Test is done. And put a breakpoint here, and we just run the test in debug mode. And let's see what happened. So only the one which is enabled has the I am enabled. Perfect. And if I check the console, in the console it says element is not enabled. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed this Selenium recipe, and I'll see you in the next one. If you like the videos, don't forget to subscribe and also hit that bell icon so that you get notified when I post new videos. Bye bye and have a good one.